In the cold darkness of space, the Galactic Council met in secret. No cameras, no reporters, and most importantly, no humans. The location was a hidden station above the dead moon of Varex 3. Only top-ranking officials from powerful alien races were allowed in. The room was large, circular, and filled with holographic lights. Each representative floated or sat in silence, waiting. Then, the High Chancellor of the Council spoke first. "Let's begin the closed session," he said, voice flat and cold. The walls shimmered, and all outside connections were cut. Inside, the Betrayal was about to begin. "We must discuss the human problem," the Chancellor continued. Whispers filled the chamber like wind through dry leaves. "They grow too fast, fight too hard, and think like predators," said the Keller ambassador. "They've already defeated 2 council fleets in self-defense," added the Trikar warlord. "They say peace, but build weapons in secret," hissed the slime-bodied Grok diplomat. "They are too dangerous," the room agreed silently. Then the vote was brought forward. Remove humans from the council, isolate Earth, and weaken their influence. But what they didn't know, someone was listening. Not a spy, not a soldier, but a janitor. A small, 4-armed alien named Yulo, who cleaned floors and emptied waste tanks. Yulo had no rank, no power. But one thing that mattered: loyalty. He had worked in human colonies, learned their ways, shared meals with them. He knew humans were not perfect, but not evil. So when he heard the Council's plan, his 4 hands began to shake. He understood what this betrayal meant. It meant war, blood, and planets burning. Yulo snuck away quietly, using maintenance vents only workers knew. He reached a storage bay and activated a secret transmitter. It was old, dusty, but still worked. He sent a simple message to Earth's outer listening post. "Council plotting betrayal. Remove humans. Act fast. Trust no one." Then he deleted the log, shut the transmitter, and returned to work like nothing happened. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon base, a signal officer picked up the strange transmission. He reported it up the chain, and soon it reached General Oren, a man who had seen too many wars. Oren stared at the short message on the screen. His jaw tightened, and he turned to his command team. "Activate Operation Duststorm," he ordered calmly. No panic, no shouting, just action. Operation Duststorm had been created for one purpose: to prepare for the day humanity would be betrayed. They never wanted war, but they were ready for it. Underground bunkers across Mars, Titan, and Europa came to life. Ships hidden under asteroid fields warmed their engines. AI drones silently activated across the stars, watching and waiting. Back at the council meeting, the decision was made. Earth would be cut off from galactic trade. Human diplomats would be sent home, and council security would begin monitoring all human activity. "We will do this quietly," said the High Chancellor, "so they cannot fight back." But the council had already made one mistake, underestimating humans. They had already received the warning. They were already preparing. 3 days later, the council's command ship above Varex 3 received a strange signal. It was not encrypted, not disguised, and came from Earth itself. A human voice played across the bridge, calm and deadly. "We know what you've done." The voice said, "We gave peace, we gave friendship, and you chose betrayal. This is your final warning. Leave our space, stay away from Earth, or face consequences you cannot imagine." The crew laughed. Humans are always so dramatic. One officer joked, "They don't have the power to fight all of US." Another added, but deep in the back of the room, one junior officer didn't laugh. She looked at the message again. Her scales turned pale, because behind the voice was a second signal, invisible to most, but not her, a code only used by ancient warships. One word: awaken. That night, in a lonely sector beyond Pluto, a black ship the size of a continent opened its eyes. Engines that had been cold for a century roared to life. Its name was Omen. Its mission was simple: protect Earth, destroy threats, and now it had been activated. Not by orders, but by betrayal. The galaxy didn't know it yet, But humanity had just stopped listening and started planning. Asterisk. The galaxy believed humanity was still recovering. They thought Earth was weak, disorganized, and afraid of war. They thought wrong, because while the Galactic Council held meetings and whispered lies, humanity had been preparing for decades in the shadows, far below the red surface of Mars. Massive hangars rumbled to life. Doors the size of cities slid open, slowly revealing deadly machines, Titan-class destroyers, invisible drones, and something else, something never shown before. Not just weapons of war, but guardians of extinction. Not just ships, but judgment. These were not ordinary tools of battle. They were designed with one goal: end wars before they begin. Earth had no plans to invade, only to make sure no one ever tried to invade them. They didn't brag, didn't parade their weapons. They just waited, watched, and prepared in the depths of Jupiter's storm clouds. A floating fortress activated. It had been hidden there for 20 years. Powered by alien tech reverse-engineered in secret. Its shields could absorb suns. Its engines could outrun light. Its name was Silencer, and it was humanity's ace in the void. On Saturn's icy moon Enceladus, sleeper agents whispered codes. Into the ice, bunkers opened, railguns unfolded, and AI satellites blinked to life in orbit. Every colony, every hidden outpost, every backup plan came online at once. Earth Command remained silent to the public, but inside the war room beneath the Himalayas, the generals stood in a circle. Their faces were calm, but their eyes burned like fire. General Oren stared at the star map as red dots appeared across Council space. Not missiles, not soldiers, just tracking beacons. Humanity had already marked every ship, every base, every target. If the time came, they wouldn't guess where to strike. They would already know, Commander Lin. The youngest fleet leader spoke first. They laughed at our peace talks, she said softly. They thought kindness meant weakness. Oren nodded. They mistook silence for fear, he replied. Now they'll see what it truly meant. Operation Dust Storm had 3 stages. Stage 1 was now complete. Full activation. Full silence. No warnings, no threats, just preparation. Stage 2 began now. A single message was broadcast across all human colonies. Only one sentence. We are no longer observers. That same message appeared across alien systems too. Not through the Council's channels, but everywhere else. On trade station screens, on civilian ships, in marketplaces and homes, it came. With no voice, no video, only words. But it sent chills through every spine that read it. Ambassadors in human territories were escorted out politely but firmly. Border patrols tightened. Civilian ships rerouted. Space lanes restructured. It wasn't loud or violent. It was clinical, professional, and cold. Like a blade being drawn in silence. The message was clear: something had changed, and the rest of the galaxy began to feel it. Meanwhile, in the Kuiper Belt, a ship unlike any other began to move. It was code-named Warden. Its hull was built from metals no one else dared use. I had been asleep for 40 years. Now it awakened with a soft hum. It didn't ask questions. It didn't request orders. It had only one directive: protect Earth. The Council still believed they had time. They believed they could pressure Earth back into silence. They sent a warning, filled with threats and diplomatic language. It arrived on Earth's communication channel and was ignored completely. No reply, no anger, just silence. That silence terrified more people than any war cry could. In the outskirts of Andromeda Base, a young pilot named Theo watched as hundreds of ships came online. He had trained in simulators, but now the real thing stood before him. Massive black ships without names, hovering in rows, engines glowing softly. His squad leader stepped beside him and whispered, "Do you know what they call this fleet?" Theo shook his head. "The Ghost Armada," she said, "because if it ever moves, someone disappears." Deep inside Earth's command core, an old admiral leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes and listened to the quiet hum of the systems. "Let them come," he said, barely louder than a breath. They wanted to see humanity's true face. Now they will, and across the stars, where Council fleets watched and waited, sensors began to detect strange movements. Ships they didn't recognize, codes they couldn't break, patterns that made no tactical sense. Until it was too late, because these were not threats. Not yet, they were warnings, and humans were giving the galaxy one last chance. A choice. Stood before every star nation, step back, or fall forward into fire. Humanity's hidden arsenal was no longer hidden, but it still hadn't spoken. Because when it did, it wouldn't be with words. It would be with silence and fire. The Galactic Council laughed. They gathered again in their golden chamber above the core star of Nuvik Prime. Screens floated around them, glowing with reports and messages from across the galaxy. They laughed at humanity's silence, at the message Earth had sent, just one sentence. "We are no longer observers." To the Council, it sounded like a child throwing a tantrum. To them, it was amusing. But to those who had met humans in battle, it was terrifying. Ambassador Vrix of the Saraxi Empire leaned back and chuckled. "Let them puff their chests," he hissed. "They're bluffing like always." His laughter spread through the chamber like fire in dry grass. The Varn speaker flicked his tail and agreed. They won't risk total war. Not after what happened. On Andorus, no one in the room noticed that one seat was empty. The Yothan delegate, known for her careful words, had vanished quietly 2 days ago. No one asked where she went, because deep down they already knew. On the outer edge of Council space, something strange began to happen. Ships went dark, stations lost power, sensors failed one after another. At first, it seemed like accidents, glitches, random malfunctions, but then patterns started to form. The affected ships all had one thing in common: they were military, and they had all recently moved closer to human space. A Council scout ship. The Terralux was the first to disappear. No distress call, no explosion, no signal, just silence. 3 more ships followed in the next hour. Then suddenly, one of them returned. But the crew was missing. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Only one thing remained: a human-made data core plugged into the command console. It activated by itself the moment the Council opened it. A hologram of Earth appeared, then a voice calm low, unmistakably human, began to speak. "You were warned," the voice said. "You chose betrayal. You chose arrogance. Now you will learn. This is not war," the voice continued. "This is your first lesson." Then the hologram vanished, and the data core melted into dust. Panic began to ripple through the Council like a growing wave. Meetings turned into shouting matches. Accusations filled the air. Who had approved the vote to isolate Earth? Who had pushed for sanctions? Who thought humans wouldn't react? But none of those questions mattered anymore, because humans were not asking for apologies. They were showing what came after the apology was too late. In Sector 19X, a Saraxi dreadnought moved to reinforce a Council base. It never arrived. Instead, its last transmission showed hundreds of black objects swarming from a nearby asteroid field. No weapons fired, no explosions, just darkness. The crew screamed, then silence. When Council investigators arrived days later, all they found was a ship with its systems disabled. The crew was alive, unharmed, but shaken beyond reason. One officer kept repeating a single sentence. "They walked through the walls," he whispered. They didn't speak. They just watched. But back in the Council chamber, the laughter had stopped. No one joked now. No one leaned back in confidence. Eyes flicked to screens showing red alerts. Across dozens of star systems, new ships, unmarked, silent, and fast, had been sighted near major trade routes. One station's cameras managed to capture a single blurry image: a black human warship drifting above a Council outpost, unmoving. Then the camera feed cut. The Council tried to respond with strength. They deployed fleets to patrol human borders. But every time they got close, their systems shut down, engines failed, weapons deactivated, AI cores reset to factory settings. They were being disarmed, silently, perfectly. Not a single shot fired, not a single life lost. But the message was louder than any explosion. You are not welcome here anymore. Ambassador Vrix, the loudest of them all, went silent for 3 days. When he returned to the chamber, he looked pale and broken. He had received a package. At his private quarters, inside was a data chip and a handwritten note. The chip played a memory his own voice, speaking during the secret meeting, mocking humans, planning betrayal. The note said only this: "We hear everything." That night, a vote was called. To reverse the sanctions, to offer peace, to ask forgiveness, but the vote failed. Not because the council disagreed, but because the humans had already stopped. Listening, and across the stars, whispers began to spread. Whispers not started by humans, but by those who saw what they had become. The humans didn't attack, they said. They just reminded us they could, and in the dark, in every council system, screens flickered for just a moment. A single human phrase appeared across the stars. Final warning. Earth had waited long enough. For weeks they watched the council lie, silence evidence, and deny the betrayal. But the truth could not be buried forever. The humans already had the proof, and now they were ready to show it to the stars. At 02:00 Universal Time, all screens across the galactic network flickered. Civilian markets, news stations, ship consoles, private homes, everything froze. The council's broadcasting system had been hijacked, not with a virus, not with violence, but with skill, precision, and a single purpose. The screen turned black, then slowly faded into a recording. A circular chamber appeared, the council's secret meeting room. Every delegate was visible, every word was clear. One after another, alien voices spoke, calling for Earth's removal, mocking human honor, voting for isolation. It wasn't just one clip, it was the entire meeting, unedited, raw, and undeniable. Gasps echoed across the stars. Millions of aliens, many who supported the council, now felt betrayed themselves. The truth hit harder than any weapon. This wasn't just politics, it was a setup. And humanity had been right all along. Then the screen changed again. It showed images of captured council fleets disabled, untouched, floating, no bodies, no damage, just silence. Then came the human voice again. "You lied, we listened," it said. "You chose betrayal, we chose proof. This is not an act of war. This is a response." The transmission ended, and the galaxy fell silent. The council scrambled to respond. They accused Earth of forgery, of hacking, of intimidation, but no one believed them now. Because deep down, the truth was too loud. In Earth's command center beneath the Himalayan mountains, General Oren stood before a wall of holograms, fleet commanders, AI advisors, planetary governors, all waiting for his word. He looked tired but steady. "This isn't about revenge," he said. "This is about trust." They broke it. Stage 3 of Operation Duststorm began. A new wave of human warships emerged. Not to attack but to stand. They took positions along Earth's claimed zones, guarding colonies and allies. They sent no threats, fired no weapons, gave no orders. They simply appeared unshakable, unmoving, unstoppable. The Galactic Council called for emergency talks. Earth ignored them. They sent envoys, messages, gifts. Earth refused to answer, not because of pride, but because the time for talking had passed. Meanwhile, across the stars, other races began to move. Small systems withdrew from the Council. Neutral planets closed their ports to Council fleets. Some even opened communications with Earth directly, not as allies but as survivors, seeking protection. They had seen the truth and no longer trusted the Council's promises. At the same time, Earth revealed something even more terrifying. A public archive free to access containing every secret the Council had ever buried. War crimes, resource theft, treaty violations. Dozens of scandals poured into public view within seconds. Some races rioted, others declared independence overnight. The Council had not just lost control of the humans, they had lost control of everything. On the human side, the people did not celebrate. There were no fireworks, no cheering in the streets. Only silence, duty, and quiet anger. They had not wanted this outcome. They had only asked to be trusted, to be treated fairly. Now, they had no choice but to remind the galaxy of the cost of betrayal. In orbit above Europa, a black ship drifted. Like a shadow. Its name was Sentinel, and it had never seen battle. It didn't need to. Its very presence caused entire fleets to reroute inside its control core. A silent AI monitored Council signals, waiting for the one order it was programmed to obey. Strike. But that order had not come, because humans were still holding the line, still offering a sliver of mercy to those who stepped back. Only one thing was no longer an option: trust. In the Council chamber, panic turned to desperation. Leaders who once mocked Earth now begged for forgiveness. They offered trade, apologies, even power. But Earth responded with only one final message. We don't want your gifts. We want distance. If you cross into our space again, there will be no warning. The Council had expected fire. They had prepared for bombs, invasions, and war fleets. What they got was worse silence. The kind of silence that made every admiral hesitate, that made every diplomat sweat. Because silence from humans now meant only one thing: judgment. And across the stars, everyone understood. Earth wasn't asking for war. It was waiting, watching who crossed the line, and ready to answer with fury. The betrayal was confirmed, and Earth's response had shaken the galaxy to its core. They had warned the galaxy. They had shown mercy. But mercy was not understood. So now humanity unleashed itself, and the stars would never forget it. Across the void, black ships moved like shadows. No noise, no broadcast, no flashing lights, just motion. They didn't fly like ordinary vessels. They flowed like rivers of steel across the stars, invisible to radar, untouched by gravity. Each ship was a fortress, a ghost, a blade. These were not the ships the galaxy knew. These were not patrol cruisers or colony transports. These were the hidden armadas, the secret fleets Earth had built in silence. Not for conquest, but for protection. Not to rule, but to remind. They came in formations no enemy could predict. One group above asteroid belts, another under frozen moons, some near sun-hugging orbits, others near the edge of black holes, all activated at once, as if hearing one silent command, but they did. Not fire, they surrounded, disabled, and silenced. Council bases found their power drained. Warships found their missiles locked in place. Entire systems went dark, yet no one died. That was the first strike, and it was terrifying because it was clean, quiet, and perfect. It showed the galaxy that humans didn't just prepare for war. They had mastered it. In Sector 72, a Council fleet tried to respond. 17 ships advanced toward a human supply post. They crossed the boundary without fear. Within seconds, they vanished from sensors. When they reappeared, they were floating, powerless, surrounded by silent human ships. A single message appeared on their screens. Leave now. They obeyed. Not one ship resisted. Not one shot was fired in the trade zone near Kelva Prime. A merchant station tried to deny entry to human cargo. It was part of a Council order. But the moment they refused docking, the sky above them changed. 50 human vessels decloaked at once. Hovering silently, the merchant lord fell to his knees. He sent a desperate message to Earth. We surrender trade rights, please just let us live. The message was ignored. The ships didn't fire, didn't land, didn't speak. They simply waited, and after 2 hours they disappeared again. Like ghosts vanishing into fog, and the merchant station never denied humans again. Back on Earth, people continued their lives. Children played, farmers harvested, teachers taught. But in the background, a different rhythm had begun. Supply chains moved faster. AI patrols adjusted their scans. Soldiers trained longer, deeper, in harsher conditions, because humanity knew. This was only the beginning. In the Soul Defense Network, the AI known as Helix activated a protocol not used in over 40 years. Protocol Genesis. It allowed total mobilization without declaring war. it gave control to systems that could respond faster than any general, and those systems were already watching. A Saraxi ambassador tried to approach Earth with gifts. He offered peace, compensation, trade agreements, even apologies. He was met by a single drone at the edge of Earth's defensive perimeter. The drone played a message. "We are not accepting apologies at this time. Leave." He did, without a word. The Council tried one last move. They sent an elite strike fleet to test Earth's will. 30 ships, cloaked, armed, fast. They moved toward a human listening post on the edge of the Orion Arm. They never arrived. Humanity didn't meet them in battle instead. Their own ships turned against them, hijacked, overridden, controlled from somewhere unknown. The Council fleet was returned to its origin point with every weapon removed, and a new symbol burned into the hull. A human hand, open and glowing. The words beneath it read, "Final warning delivered." Now across the galaxy, silence grew. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of fear. The kind that filled the lungs before a scream. The kind that crawled into every political meeting. The kind that whispered, "Don't move. They're watching." Humanity had not destroyed a single city, had not killed a single diplomat, but it had shaken the very foundation of the galactic order. It had rewritten the rules of war without firing a shot. In the deepest corners of the Council's archives, new reports flooded in. Ships missing, AI shutdowns, station blackouts. And every file ended the same way. Suspected origin, human, now. Even the most powerful empires trembled. Not because of what humans had done, but because of what they might do next. And because, in every shadow, they now feared seeing a ship without lights, a message without words, and the quiet, crushing presence of a species that had been too kind for too long. Humanity had been unleashed, not in rage, but in warning, and the galaxy finally understood. This was not the beginning of war. This was the end of silence, asterisk. They called it the quiet panic. It didn't start with explosions or screams. It began with whispers. One system at a time, one ambassador at a time, one family at a time, across Council space. Ships began to move, not military ships but civilian ones, cargo vessels, passenger liners, merchant convoys, all leaving Council-controlled zones near Earth's border, all heading away from human space as fast as possible. It was not an evacuation, not yet. It was something worse, an exodus, a slow, silent flow of frightened people, not fleeing war, but the idea of war, not fleeing violence, but the presence of humanity's judgment. In the neutral zone near the Veos cluster, 3 Council colonies packed their belongings overnight. By morning, the cities were empty. Streets deserted, lights flickering, automated systems shutting down. A single message was left on every display screen. "We will not wait for the storm." At first, the Council called it cowardice. They said these were overreactions, emotional responses. They told their citizens Earth had no intention to attack. But the people didn't believe them. They had seen the footage, heard the human voice, watched entire fleets vanish without a sound. So they left. Doctors abandoned hospitals, traders left markets, engineers shut down factories, even entire families of Council soldiers went missing. Their ships found later drifting toward the rim, with their ID signals disabled, and their navigation set far away from any known territory. In the great station of Aurelius Prime, once called the heart of the Council, tens of thousands waited in docking bays, holding tickets, supplies, crying children. No one told them to run, but they all ran anyway. The High Chancellor gave a speech, broadcast live across the stars. He begged for unity, demanded loyalty, warned against fear, but behind him, his own advisors packed their bags. Because the Chancellor's words came too late, fear had already bloomed like a virus across the stars. Some planets even took extreme action. The mining world of Trexa detonated its own wormhole gate, cutting off all direct paths from Earth's sector. It left them stranded, isolated, safe, at least in their minds. Other colonies installed massive jamming fields, hoping to block any incoming signal that even looked human. Not because humans had attacked, but because no one wanted to be the next target of silence. The real fear was never about weapons, it was about control. Humanity had shown it could walk into systems, disable fleets, and walk away without firing once. That power made even the bravest commanders hesitate. Because how do you fight an enemy who doesn't need to fight? Who wins without destruction? Who speaks only in warnings and then vanishes? In a distant system ruled by the Zarn Collective, the Queen herself issued an urgent decree. All Zarn military craft are to retreat beyond Sector Edge 44. All Zarn colonies near Sol Space must be evacuated within 14 rotations. All Zarn diplomatic contact with humans is to be made through drones only. No ceremony, no pride, only fear wearing the crown. And back on Earth, the humans watched it all unfold. Not with joy, not with celebration, but with cold understanding. They had asked for peace. They had offered friendship. They had accepted the Council's rules. And in return, they had been marked for betrayal. Now the galaxy chose distance over trust, and humanity gave them exactly that. Inside the Sol Defense Hub, General Oren stood with his hands behind his back, watching a star map dotted with thousands of blinking ships. Every red marker represented a vessel leaving Council space. Commander Lin stepped forward, quiet but firm. "They're running," she said. "They fear what we might do." Oren nodded. "We didn't push them," he replied. "We just stopped holding back." And he was right. This wasn't an invasion. It was gravity, the natural pull of fear meeting truth. In the outer ring of the Orion Spiral, a small refugee ship broadcast a signal. A soft voice, trembling, spoke in human standard. "We don't agree with the Council. We just want to live. We're heading away, please. Please don't follow." The message ended in silence. No reply came. Because humans didn't need to respond anymore. Their message had already been sent loud, clear, final. The galaxy had made its choice. It could have stood beside Earth. It could have protected the truth. Instead, it protected lies now. The stars emptied themselves near Sol Space, and the Council watched their empire shrink by the day. Not by war, not by force, but by fear, because in the end, the most powerful weapon humanity ever built was not a bomb, not a battleship, not even a warship hidden beneath Mars. It was reputation, forged in betrayal, sharpened in silence, and now carried like a blade across the stars. The war never came. There were no final battles, no last stands, no burning cities in the dark, but something much greater happened. Something the galaxy would never forget. They had expected fire. They had expected Earth to roar, to rage, to unleash destruction on every traitor. But humanity chose something far more terrifying. They chose to remember every race, every station, every planet that watched the broadcasts, that saw fleets vanish, that heard the words, "Final warning," would carry the memory for generations. The Galactic Council collapsed in silence, their authority broken not by war, but by fear, shame, and exposure. No one trusted them anymore, not even their own numbers. Worlds left without asking. Fleets abandoned their flags, and the proud chamber that once ruled the stars now echoed with empty chairs. But Earth didn't step in to take their place. They didn't demand thrones or titles. They didn't raise a new banner across the stars. Instead, they withdrew quietly, sealing their borders, pulling their embassies, and leaving only one message on every channel: "Do not return." A new map of the galaxy was drawn, not by ink or law, but by fear. Every system near Sol Space was now marked red, not hostile, not claimed, just off-limits. Ships that entered that zone were never harmed, but they always returned with dead engines, wiped memories, or sometimes not at all. The few that returned spoke of strange encounters, of ghost ships drifting silently, of human voices whispering across empty voids, of seeing massive shapes in the dark that blinked and vanished. They were not attacked, they were observed, And so the galaxy adjusted, trade routes shifted, colonies rerouted. No one dared challenge Earth again, not because of what humans had done, but because of what they had not. Children were taught stories, tales of the sleeping giants of Sol, of the day the Council betrayed them. And the humans did not scream, they watched, they waited, and they warned. In alien schools, younglings asked, what would have happened if we attacked Earth? And the teachers always answered, we don't ask that, because we never want to know. Some still feared, some still hated, but most respected, because in a galaxy ruled by power and pride, humanity had shown something different: control, honor, and a silence sharper than any blade. A century passed, and the legend grew. New empires rose, new races took flight. But the shadow of Earth remained across every star chart, a reminder, a warning, a lesson burned into memory. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. A small ship from a distant, peaceful race approached Earth's edge. No weapons, no secrets, just a message. A voice, trembling but honest, spoke. We are not part of the old council. We are young, but we remember. We want to learn, not control. We offer no lies, only peace. The ship waited. 1 day passed, then 2, then 5, no response. On the 7th day, a signal returned. No words, just a single data package. Inside it, thousands of books, songs, scientific archives, human knowledge, a gift. And at the end, one sentence. You remembered. No alliance was made, no treaty signed, but a path was opened, and for the first time in years, a human ship stepped beyond its border, not for war, but to see what had grown in the silence, because humanity had not disappeared. They had not become monsters or tyrants. They had simply waited for someone worthy, and the galaxy remembered. Not the ships, not the silence, but the choice. The choice to rise when betrayed, to respond without hate, to hold power without using it blindly, to walk away when the whole galaxy expected them to conquer. That was Earth's legacy. That was what they left behind. A message carved into the stars for all to hear, but only the wise to understand. We do not conquer. We remember. Do not give us reason to forget.